All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're reconstructing a devastating, real-world mystery, how investigators meticulously solved the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103. We're going to break down an investigation that completely pushed the limits of both forensic science and international law, relying strictly on the established facts and historical records. By the end of our time together, you're going to understand not just what happened on that fateful night, but exactly how a massive, seemingly impossible puzzle was actually pieced together.
Picture this. It's an ordinary evening, late December 1988. People are heading home for the holidays, super excited to see their families. It felt like a completely routine, peaceful holiday journey, soaring through the night sky. If you were sitting in that cabin, there was absolutely nothing to indicate this flight was any different from the thousands of others crossing the Atlantic that week. The atmosphere was calm, the aircraft was operating normally, and the crew was just following standard protocols. Honestly, it's the sheer ordinariness of this moment that makes what happens next so deeply jarring.
259. Now that's a really important number for us to keep in mind today. That is the number of everyday passengers and crew on board, just blissfully unaware of the impending tragedy. They represented dozens of different nationalities, professions, and backgrounds, all sharing this one enclosed space. It's a stark reminder that behind the massive forensic investigation, the complex geopolitics, and the changes to global security protocols that we're going to talk about, there are real people. Understanding the scale of this human loss is absolutely crucial to understanding the unprecedented scale of the investigation that followed.
So let's move into Section 1, Flight 103's final moments, the calm before the tragedy.
Which brings us to Section 2, the timeline of disaster, December 21st, 1988.
Let's map out exactly how fast things went wrong. Early in the evening, Pan Am Flight 103 has a completely standard takeoff from London Heathrow Airport. Everything is fine. As we move into the mid-evening, the aircraft reaches its designated cruising altitude over Scotland. Again, everything on the instruments is green. But then, out of nowhere at exactly 7:03 p.m., there is a sudden, catastrophic loss of radar contact. No distress call, no warning from the cockpit at all, just an instantaneous disappearance from the screens of air traffic controllers. This sudden, terrifying cessation of data was literally the very first clue investigators had to work with.
Now for Section 3, piecing together the evidence, a monumental task.
Think about the sheer logistical nightmare investigators faced here. We're talking about a debris field covering 845 square miles across Scotland. Because the plane broke apart at cruising altitude, the wind just scattered it. Imagine being tasked with walking hundreds of miles of terrain, looking for shattered fragments that could be as small as a fingernail. Eventually, searchers collected tens of thousands of these fragments. This wasn't just a basic search, it was the largest crime scene in history up to that point. Every single piece of twisted metal, every scrap of fabric, had to be documented, bagged, and transported. The patience required for this is just mind-blowing.
Moving right along to Section 4, the forensic breakthrough. Science solves the mystery.
So how do you actually uncover a bomb in a mountain of twisted metal? Well, step 1, you strictly grid that massive debris field for systematic searching. Every square inch has to be accounted for. Step 2, you swab the recovered fragments looking for chemical explosive residue. This is where the science really kicks in, identifying the invisible chemical signatures of a bomb. And then Step 3, and this is the true needle in a haystack moment, they somehow managed to isolate a piece of the timing device embedded in a tiny cassette player circuit board. I mean, finding a microscopic fragment of a circuit board amongst tens of thousands of pieces of wreckage, it's just an astonishing feat of investigative endurance.
That brings us to forensic reconstruction. It's the painstaking scientific process of piecing together physical blast damage to recreate the sequence of events and identify the exact suitcase holding the explosive. It's not just putting a puzzle back together, it's literally reading the damage. By physically reassembling parts of the fuselage inside a massive hangar, investigators could analyze the pitting, the blast vectors, the tear patterns in the metal. This let them trace the explosive force back to its absolute origin point. They reverse-engineered the blast to pinpoint not just the section of the cargo hold, but the specific suitcase containing that cassette player. Unbelievable work.
All right, Section 5, convictions and lingering doubts, the global search for accountability. Now, to give you a complete picture, we have to look at the official record as well as the ongoing discussions around it. On one side, we have the official conviction details. Evidence linking that tiny bomb timer fragment to Libyan intelligence ultimately led to the official conviction of Abdel Bassat al-Megrahi. That's the historical record. But on the other side, decades later, some historians and independent investigators still fiercely debate the reliability of key witness testimony and some interpretations of the forensic evidence.
Now, we aren't taking sides here, but it's a matter of factual record that this conviction was incredibly complex and remains a major topic of discussion among experts today.
Let's shift to Section 6, A Changed Aviation World, the Legacy of Lockerbie.
Before this tragedy, global aviation had some massive vulnerabilities. But because investigators figured out exactly how the bomb was smuggled onto the plane in an unaccompanied suitcase, aviation security changed forever. First, we got strict international baggage matching protocols. Basically, a bag doesn't fly if the passenger isn't on the plane. Period. We also saw the rollout of enhanced explosive detection systems at airports, vastly increased scrutiny on all unaccompanied luggage, and greater global intelligence sharing among agencies. So why does this matter to you? Because every single time you walk through an airport today, the security keeping you safe was directly shaped by the lessons learned from Pan Am Flight 103.
It all comes back to a really powerful thought. The victims are remembered not just for how they died, but for how their tragic loss permanently altered the safety of our global skies. We started with the number 259. Their memory isn't just defined by the tragedy itself, or even the incredible forensic science that followed. It's defined by the fact that the skies are measurably safer today because of the systemic changes their loss forced the world to make. It is a legacy that permanently cements the need for vigilance.
I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question to chew on. As aviation security continues to evolve, how do we balance the ongoing quest for absolute historical truth with the immediate need for global safety? We've seen how tiny fragments across hundreds of miles reshaped international law and global security. But as the historical debates show us, the pursuit of clarity is a continuous journey. So as technology advances, how do we keep our skies safe while ensuring our historical records reflect the absolute truth? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.